Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. Today, we're jumping into episode 41 of our analysis of the book, The Generals of Pakistan by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer. We're going to be exploring a really critical shift in modern warfare, looking at how the Pakistan Army's entire strategy is evolving. Think about it. We're moving from a world that was all about steel and firepower to a future that's going to be defined by data, by code, and by artificial intelligence. And let me tell you, this isn't just some simple tech upgrade. No. This is a fundamental transformation that completely redefines what it means to be a military power in the 21st century. And the fascinating part, it's all happening right now.
You know, for generations, for centuries really, military strength was something you could see and touch. It was tangible. You measured it in tons of steel, in barrels of fuel, and in the sheer, overwhelming force of your firepower. It was a physical game. But as you can see right here, the new battlefield, it's almost invisible. It's a completely different domain, built on lines of code, powered by these massive, ever-flowing streams of data and commanded by algorithms that can think and react at machine speed. This isn't science fiction, it's not some distant future. This is the strategic reality of today, where a critical advantage can be won or lost, not on a mountain pass, but inside a microsecond of processing time. It's a whole new world.
And this right here, this is the absolute heart of the entire shift. See, it's not about replacing tanks with computer servers. It's about augmentation. It's about adding a new, powerful layer. A truly modern military has to be fluent in two languages at once, the old language of physical force and this new language of computational logic. The ability to command an algorithm, to really understand its outputs, to trust its analysis. That skill is now every bit as critical as the ability to command an artillery battery. The two work together in a kind of warfare we've just never seen before.
Now, when you hear all this talk about AI, it might be tempting to see it as this sudden revolution, something that just popped up out of nowhere. But that's not the real picture. As the analysis points out, this is an evolution. It's been built on a long and very deliberate legacy of adopting new technology. In fact, you could say the foundation for today was laid over decades, with each generation of leadership building upon what the last one started.
This timeline really illustrates that step-by-step progression perfectly. I mean, look at the Ayub Khan era. The focus back then was on establishing the core of a 20th century force, getting radar for early warnings, modern jets for air superiority, and reliable radio for command and control. Basic but essential stuff. Then, let's fast forward to the Zia-ul-Haq era, which was totally shaped by the war in Afghanistan. Technology suddenly became a tool for asymmetric warfare. We're talking sophisticated covert logistics and, of course, those game-changing Stinger missiles. Then, under Musharraf, the perspective literally expanded from the battlefield all the way up into space. Satellite imagery gave us unprecedented intelligence, and precision munitions allowed for surgical strikes. And all of that, it brings us to today, under General Ahmad Meer, where the next big leap is into the intangible, the digital and algorithmic world. You see? Each era laid the groundwork, both in terms of hardware and, just as importantly, in mindset for the next one.
So the bottom line is this. AI isn't being introduced into a vacuum. It's being layered on top of decades of institutional experience with complex systems, with radar, with secure communications, with satellite data. You can't just wake up one morning and decide you're going to be an AI-enabled army. It doesn't work that way. It's this existing technological backbone, this deep familiarity with integrating advanced systems that makes the current leap into AI not just some wild ambition, but something that's actually possible.
Okay, so we've established the history, we see how we got here, but what does it actually mean to be an AI-enabled force? You know, it's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot, often without a clear definition. So let's break down exactly what it means, according to the source material. This is pretty much the blueprint for a modern digital military.
So here's the core definition, and it's really about three distinct ideas, all working together, in concert. First, you have interconnected sensors. That's everything that sees, hears, and gathers information, from a satellite in orbit, to a camera on a drone, to a tiny sensor on the ground. Second, you need powerful data analysis to make any sense of the absolute flood of information these sensors create. I mean, it's just a tidal wave of data. And third, you layer artificial intelligence on top of all that to find the hidden patterns, to flag the anomalies, and to speed the whole process up. The ultimate goal? It's actually pretty simple. Make smarter decisions faster than your adversary can. That's the whole game.
And look, this isn't just theory. These are the actual practical tools that are making this a reality. We're talking about drones that provide those persistent, unblinking eyes in the sky, sometimes for weeks at a time. We're talking about satellites that gather high-resolution intelligence from orbit, totally immune to threats on the ground. You need robust cyber defenses because you have to protect the very networks this new force relies on. And of course, sophisticated digital intelligence gathering that can sift through the global information environment. Every single one of these components generates a torrent of data, and that's precisely where AI becomes not just helpful, but absolutely essential.
Okay, let's get even more specific. Let's zoom in on one of the most powerful and immediate uses for this technology: smarter surveillance. This is where AI moves from being a big, high-level concept to a real-world tool that is fundamentally changing how borders are watched, how threats are spotted, and how security operations are done.
You know, one of the biggest advantages of AI here is its sheer, inhuman relentlessness. Think about it. A human operator, no matter how skilled or dedicated they are, gets tired. They need breaks. Their attention can wander, especially after staring at a screen for 8 hours straight. An AI system? It has none of those biological limits. It can process endless streams of video, endless sensor data, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it does it with the exact same level of precision in the 1,000th hour as it had in the very first minute. That kind of endurance completely changes the whole calculus of surveillance.
So how does this actually play out on the ground? Well, you can think of it as a three-step process. First, you simply see more. This network of drones, thermal cameras, and ground sensors creates this incredible multi-layered picture that was just impossible to get before. Second, you react faster. Instead of having a team of people watching hundreds of hours of mostly boring footage, the AI does that initial heavy lifting. It instantly flags anomalies, a vehicle where it shouldn't be, movement patterns that don't fit the norm. And third, and this is so key, you reduce mistakes. By filtering out all the noise, the AI lets your highly trained human experts focus their limited time and attention on the very few events that are genuine potential threats. The AI finds the needle in the haystack so the human can decide what to do about it.
This simple phrase, it just distills the entire purpose of AI in surveillance down to its powerful essence. This isn't about some complex, abstract philosophy. No, it's about a very practical, very real improvement in how things get done. See more, react faster, and reduce mistakes. That, in a nutshell, is the tactical advantage AI provides on the modern battlefield. It's a formula for gaining and maintaining the upper hand. So, as we pull all these different threads together, from the history of technology all the way to these modern real-world applications, what's the ultimate takeaway? What's the big idea behind this whole transformation? Well, it really comes down to forging a new and incredibly powerful kind of partnership. And this right here might be the most important point of all. This profound technological shift is not about creating an army of autonomous robots. The real goal, the true goal, is to take the unique skills, the intuition, the critical judgment of a human soldier and supercharge them with the speed, the data processing power, and the endurance of a machine. It's a human-machine partnership, and it's designed to make that soldier more aware, more effective, and ultimately safer in an increasingly complex and dangerous world. And so, this leaves us with a final and absolutely crucial question to think about. As decision cycles shrink from hours down to minutes, and then to mere seconds, driven by the incredible speed of dueling algorithms, what happens to the human in the loop? In this new era, when wars are fought at the speed of algorithms, what becomes the most critical, the most irreplaceable role for the soldier? When the machine can see more, react faster, and process infinitely more information. That is the strategic question at the very heart of this entire—
Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into something pretty wild. How the front lines of national security are shifting from actual soil to digital servers. We're going to look at this whole transformation through the lens of Pakistan and explore how artificial intelligence is fast becoming the most critical tool in any modern nation's arsenal. All right, let's get into it.
You know, this line right here, it gets straight to the heart of what we're talking about. It completely flips our whole idea of what a border is. We think of lines on a map, right? Or maybe physical checkpoints. But for a nation like Pakistan, with its incredibly complex place in the world, the most vulnerable frontiers, well, you can't even see them. And that's what we mean by the invisible front line. The modern battlefield, it's not just land, sea, and air anymore. There's a fourth domain, cyberspace. A country's borders now stretch to every single server, every network, and every data center holding critical information. Suddenly, digital sovereignty is every bit as important as territorial integrity. So, the big question is, how do you defend a border you can't see? Well, it's not so much about building walls anymore. It's about building firewalls. We're in a brand new era of national security, where the threats are totally silent.
They move at the speed of light, and they can come from absolutely anywhere in the world, targeting a nation's most vital functions in a blink.
And these threats are very, very real. We're not talking about some abstract concept. Hostile actors can target the very systems that make a country run. Just imagine the chaos. What if air traffic control at Juneau International Airport just goes dark, or the entire national power grid gets shut off? They could disrupt the financial hubs in Karachi, compromise super-sensitive military communications, or spread chaos with disinformation. This is the reality of modern conflict.
And for every one of those threats, you better believe there's a defense. Nations now have to treat cybersecurity as a fundamental pillar of their national security. This means things like super secure encrypted data links for the government and military, having cyber incident teams on standby 24/7, ready to counter an attack at a moment's notice, and constantly monitoring for any hint of digital espionage. It is a non-stop, high-stakes game of cat and mouse.
Let's just pause and think about that for a second. This is the key. This is the idea that pivots us into the next part of our explainer. A single, tiny virus, just a few lines of malicious code, could cause more widespread chaos and damage than an entire physical military unit. It's a huge shift in thinking, and it's the perfect bridge to understanding the role of intelligence in this new world.
So just look at how intelligence gathering itself has changed. Traditionally, it was all about human reports, spies on the ground, paper files, and analysts manually putting the pieces together. But today, it's a tidal wave of digital intelligence from sources like thousands of CCTV cameras in major cities, satellite images of the most remote regions, and just massive, massive amounts of phone metadata. For any intelligence agency, it's a completely different ballgame. And this massive shift brings with it a huge problem. We call it the data deluge. There is simply too much information flowing in every single second of every single day. For the analysts trying to protect national security, it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. The sheer volume of it all is just, well, it's overwhelming. And that's the core challenge, really, for every modern intelligence agency out there. It honestly doesn't matter how big your team of analysts is. They can never, ever read, watch, or listen to everything. The scale of the data is just beyond human capacity. So, what's the solution when the problem is too big for people to handle on their own? The answer, in a word, is AI, artificial intelligence. It acts as a massive force multiplier. It's really the only tool out there that's capable of sifting through that insane amount of data to find the one tiny needle in a continent-sized haystack. AI doesn't replace the human analysts, it empowers them. It turns all that raw, overwhelming data into clear, actionable intelligence. So how does it actually do it? Well, first up is something called pattern recognition. An AI can scan, say, millions of financial transactions and see these hidden connections that a human might never spot. In a place like Pakistan, it could be used to map out a really complex terror financing network or trace smuggling routes just by connecting these seemingly random dots that are buried in huge datasets.
Then you've got facial recognition. This is a big one. It allows authorities to scan countless hours of video from public cameras to find and track a wanted person as they move, maybe across a city, or even trying to cross a border. It's an incredibly powerful tool for locating a high-value target in a crowded city or at a busy airport.
And finally, there's anomaly detection. Now, this is really clever. AI is brilliant at learning what normal looks like. Normal communication patterns, normal traffic at a border crossing, normal activity on a network. So when something happens that deviates from that normal pattern, like a weird burst of data traffic near a sensitive military site, it automatically flags it for a human to review. It's basically a critical early warning system for potential threats.
But here's the crucial part. It all comes down to the idea of AI as a shield. When these technologies are used responsibly, they're incredibly effective at protecting people by isolating the real threats from all the noise. They help make security efforts way more precise and focused on genuine dangers.
So let's just quickly recap the two massive transformations we've talked about. First, the battlefield has moved online, creating this new digital border that has to be defended 24/7. And second, the insane volume of data has made AI an absolutely essential shield, turning what was an overwhelming problem into a decisive strategic advantage. These really are the twin pillars of modern defense.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. We've seen how technology is totally rewriting the rules of security and conflict. So if a simple line of code can now be a weapon of mass disruption, what does that mean for the future of war? What kinds of conflicts will the next generation have to face? It's a sobering thought, but an absolutely essential one to consider. So when you picture a general, what comes to mind?
You're probably thinking about tanks, troops, borders, physical stuff, right? But what if the next great battlefield isn't a place you can find on a map? What if it's fought with data, with algorithms, and with this whole idea of digital sovereignty? That's the huge question we're diving into today as we unpack the ideas from the book, The Generals of Pakistan, by Zaheer Ahmad Meer. It's a vision for a military completely transformed for the digital age.
We've got a pretty fascinating road ahead of us. First, we're going to look at this massive shift from barracks to blockchain. Then, and this is crucial, we'll get into the legal and ethical guardrails needed to control this new power. After that, we'll explore what this new digital army would actually do. And we'll wrap up by looking at the really profound moral test this whole transformation represents.
All right, Section 1. So what does this new battlefield even look like? Well, the book proposes a complete reimagining of what national defense is. It's all about shifting from a physical footing to a digital one. The author has this really powerful way of putting it, moving from the barracks to the blockchain. And the difference is just huge. On one hand, you've got the warfare we all know from history books. It's tangible, it's physical, it's fought over land with soldiers and machines. But the framework in this book argues for a total pivot. The new domains are digital. Here, the most valuable assets are data, the weapons are sophisticated algorithms, and the territory you have to defend is your nation's digital sovereignty. It's control over its own data, its own infrastructure, its own information. It's a completely different way of seeing the world.
Okay, so as soon as you start talking about this kind of digital power, a massive question pops up. How do you control it? How do you make sure these incredible new technologies are used responsibly? Let's jump into our second section and see how the book tries to build a moral compass for this new digital general.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it. This is a core principle of the author's vision. Technology, no matter how powerful, is just a tool. It is never, ever the final authority. The book makes it crystal clear that no matter how smart the AI gets, those ultimate life or death decisions have to stay firmly in human hands. An algorithm can analyze, it can suggest, it can recommend, but it can't give the command.
So, building on that idea, the framework lays out these three key pillars. First, just like we said, the human decision is always final, period. Second, every single action has to be rooted in the nation's constitution and its laws. This ensures technology serves the state, not the other way around. And third, any use of these powerful cyber tools has to follow the principles of human rights and proportionality. It's basically a system of checks and balances, but built for the digital age.
So, when you boil it all down, it's really a balancing act. The book frames the biggest challenge here not as a technological one, but as an ethical one. How does a nation grab onto the immense power of digital and AI tools without crossing its own moral and constitutional red lines? That's the tightrope this new kind of military has to walk.
All right, so let's say an army pulls this off. They successfully navigate that ethical tightrope. What's their new job description? What does this army actually do? Let's explore the evolving role of what the book calls the new digital guardian.
The book lays out a kind of three-stage evolution. It starts where you'd probably expect, using AI to make the whole defense institution smarter and more efficient. But then its role gets much bigger. The army becomes a guardian of the nation's digital lifeblood. We're talking its data, its communications, even its digital economy. And then, finally, it evolves into a partner in digital governance. And this is where it gets really interesting. This could mean using its super secure infrastructure to help verify the integrity of, say, a national digital payment system, or to shield critical public utilities from cyber attacks. It's about directly contributing to the nation's economic security.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, why go through all this trouble? Why such a radical change? What's the real payoff for the country as a whole? Well, the book argues that the benefits go way, way beyond the traditional battlefield.
The framework is really aiming for three big outcomes. First, to protect the nation from something called hybrid wars, and that's a key idea we're going to define in just a moment. Second, to lock down the country's most valuable modern resource, its data. And third, to use all these advanced digital tools to find new and innovative ways to actually serve the nation's citizens. And that brings us to our final section, because what this book is really describing, it isn't just a new military strategy. It's a profound test of modernity itself. It's about how a country redefines its most fundamental institutions when faced with game-changing technology. To really get what's at stake here, we have to understand this term, hybrid warfare. Look, it's not just about armies clashing on a field anymore. It's this messy, complex blend of cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, fake news, and political pressure.
all of it designed to destabilize a country from the inside out. And this is exactly why securing national data and financial systems becomes a frontline defense. These modern conflicts often go after a nation's economy and social fabric long before they ever touch its borders.
So, at the end of the day, the vision laid out in the Generals of Pakistan is one where the Army's role expands so much that the old line between protecting the nation and developing the nation, it just starts to blur. In this model, defending cyber sovereignty is a form of economic policy. Securing data is a form of public service. And that leaves us with a huge, provocative, final question to think about. This model suggests a powerful fusion of military and civilian roles, all of it driven by technology. It's a vision for 21st century security for sure, but it also forces us to ask a really fundamental question. In this new digital world, when an army is tasked with guarding the nation's data, where exactly does the soldier end and the